Hello. My name is Temitope Olodo. I'm a preventive terrorism consultant, author, and president of African Security Forum. And today we are talking about the most important issue in Africa today, which is Boko Haram. It's the most important issue because over 2 million people have been displaced by this group. This is a group that started with tape recorders, and now they are pulling more than 1 million views on Twitter, on Facebook. This is a group that was unknown about 10 years ago, but today they are studied around the world, from Australia to Morocco, from Morocco to US Navy, from US Navy even to the British. Everyone is studying Boko Haram. What is it that Boko Haram have not done? Everything ISIS have done, Boko Haram have done. The only thing they don't have is that they don't control oil and they don't have planes. But they are one group that have beaten armies. They've beaten multinational task force. They've beaten they've beaten all groups. You know, they go into super camps. They attack everything. So, and I've got 3 important individuals who are experts in their field. You know, expert. They know what they're talking about. They know their onions. I don't even need to even utter a word. They know what to talk about. And I'll be bringing Professor Ali Alao on board, who will be speaking to us. I have my brother Chidi, who is an expert, been working on this field for many years and has many experience in this field. I'm bringing also somebody practically from the ground, my brother Oluwaseyi, who is going to be talking more from a practical perspective as somebody on the ground in Nigeria. So, who is Boko Haram? Boko Haram, as we know from history, as far back as 2002, but it actually became very active in 2009. That was when they became a household name in Nigeria after the death of Mohammed Yusuf. But since then, they've continued to wreak havoc. And we need to find out, why is it that they are undefeated? Why is it that Nigerian army have been unable to actually eradicate this group? Why is it that all we hear is they are technically defeated, but we've not been able to more or less get rid of them completely? So let me start with Mr. Chidi. Thank you so much for coming on board. I know you're a very busy man. You're always on many TV channels talking about this subject. But for our viewers on Facebook, I think it's time live. I want them to know exactly what this group is about. And it's not like the 3-4 minutes bite that we get on TV. This is going to be live. You giving us information that, in fact, many people have not heard about. So please, you have 2 minutes. Tell us all you think there is to know about Boko Haram in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Good evening,
Mr. Chidi.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. You know, it's a great honor to be in such an illustrious panel. I think the main thing we need to know about Boko Haram, you know, coming at it from various angles, or coming at it from the military angle and from the Nigerian and the African angle, is that this is not something that is, out of the ordinary. If you look at the trajectory of Nigeria, it is the natural progression of the various kind of what I would say is uprisings and insurrections that have arisen in Nigeria. And if we focus particularly on northern Nigeria, where there's been many Islamic uprisings, this is, this is the natural kind of conclusion of that. So whilst people make a lot about the fact that, Boko Haram is Western education is forbidden and all of this kind of stuff, what we have to look at it more is it's an uprising of not just the youth, but the dispossessed, a class of people who consider themselves to have been lied to, deceived, used, and this is their uprising. You can see it in many of the leader of one of the factions of Boko Haram. You can see it in a lot of his speeches where he talks about this small boy, this little boy, Shakao. This is the dispossessed fighting back. So the key thing to know about, to me, about Boko Haram is that it's a very Nigerian problem. But it's taken on a global dimension simply because of the Islamic element. Now that doesn't mean that this is an Islamic problem per se, but there were continuous strands between the Niger Delta militants, the Bakassi militants, and Boko Haram. These are all people who feel dispossessed, who feel that the state has failed them, and have felt that taking up arms is the best way forward. So looking at Boko Haram holistically, militarily, they're just as difficult as any normal insurgency, but from an insurgency point of view, the solution to Boko Haram or the genesis of the Boko Haram problem is the dysfunction within the Nigerian state?
Thank you so much for that very sharp, quick, analysis. And now, Prof, you've been to the north, you've been to Maduguri, you've been to all these places. What is your view of Boko Haram from your perspective as an intellectual and somebody that actually mixed with a lot of people from the north and actually had their perception of what their view about Boko Haram?
Thank you for having me.
Go ahead,
good evening, our viewers around the world, both here home in UK and in Nigeria, I must say. Yeah, when we say Boko Haram, saying Western education is forbidden or shouldn't even be talking about, well, again, when they say Islamic, I would try to say we should try to reframe when we put Islamic to it. We might say Muslim. When we say, well, they are Muslim, but there's nothing Islamic in that movement. Okay, well, as my colleague, Comrade Chidi, if I'm not mistaken, mentioned, that these are the people that possess the franchise, the pride. Again, the root cause of Boko Haram movement, I will call it movement, is not a sect, it's a movement. Is that there's nothing unique about Boko Haram than their modus of operandi, the way they carry out the mayhem. Within the same very, the possessed people, the people are the franchise. The reason why being from the science of Boko Haram itself, founded by one man, one local player known as Mohammed Yusuf, that was later, killed in cold blood. That, the whole world saw how he was being apprehended and how he was being gunned down openly. Now, going back into the Boko Haram as a movement, which I would say not a sect, because when we call them a sect, it's like I say we are glorifying them or giving them that pedestal they do not have. So yeah, these are the people, these are actors on their privilege, they are deprived of everything. And again, this goes to show the root cause of this has to do with not just education, but the poverty and the corruption that has eroded the whole northern part of Nigeria. So that's my own little intro to the word of Boko Haram. They happen to be Muslim, but nothing Islamic in what they projected or what they philosophy.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. Let me bring in Mr. Sheina. If you're watching right now, please like this place, share it, let people know that we're live talking about Boko Haram, and I've got the best people in the house that could actually talk about it. There are other people that could talk about it. Believe me, they are the people. So, Mr. Sheyi, good evening, and thank you for joining us all the way from 3,000 miles, in Lagos. What is your view about Boko Haram? You've been in it, you've spoken about it, you're talking to security, you are within the security cycle, you worked there, you dealt with all these kind of issues. What is your view of Boko Haram in 2 minutes, sir?
Okay, so thank you very much. I think I have a bit of challenge with the audio this side. I could barely hear what the other erudite speakers are saying. But the little I could pick, I think I just try and make my own little contribution. Let me just sum it up as
apology. It looks as if we have lost the.
I believe that if
go ahead,
we have the opportunity of playing over the scenario back, I think as a nation we would do better. Like I told few people on recent that we're in a situation that we created ourselves, and if the leader, Mohammed Yusuf, was not killed, we would not be having what we have in our hands today. I'm saying this not just as an analyst. Like I do tell people, I'm not just somebody who read about Boko Haram. I was involved. I was on the field. I was involved with the arrest of many of the commanders. I was involved with tracking and arresting major leaders in Boko Haram. People. And I came out at that time to conclude that Boko Haram, as we see today, is a direct reflection of how bad this country has been managed over the years. And it also reflects on how we are not learning from past mistakes, and we're still doing everything every day to continue to allow situations like this. It's not only Boko Haram that we have today. We have the ISWAP, and we have many other groups that are growing every day, taking the same coloration and the description of Boko Haram that we've insurgency that we've experienced in our hand, a monster that we created, badly managed, and we lack the coercive power and the understanding to put this problem to rest.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brashi. Thank you so much for that analysis. Some of the discussions, and if you're watching right now, please like this place, share it, and call others. Let them know that we are actually live talking about Boko Haram. I think part of the problem we have is that Nigerian army have always come out to say that they can deal with Boko Haram. That it's just that they don't have enough weapon, and it's because of that they've not been able to deal with it. But we see that countries like Chad, countries like Cameroon, countries like Niger, who are not as big as us, who should not actually have the financial muscle we have been able to beat bad Boko Haram. So let me start with Mr. Chidi. Why is it that the Francophone countries seems to have a bit of a success with Boko Haram that we seem not to have from what many analysts could see? Why is it that they seem to have some success and we cannot have those kind of success that they are pushing out? Mr. Chidi.
Well, I would as as a good Nigerian, I would struggle with that definition that the Francophone countries are having more success. But we also have to be realistic about the relative success that the Nigerian forces are having. But I think the key thing that we need to look at is as I mentioned at the beginning, is that this is a Nigerian problem. The Boko Haram, the bulk of the leaders, except we can think of a few people, etc., who are maybe Cameroonians. The majority of the leaders, the majority of the fighting forces are Nigerians. There was in the early days, there were a lot of Cameroonians there, but the leadership, the structures of Boko Haram were all in Nigeria. This is their main effort, and Nigeria has always been kind of the focal point of the Lake Chad, that Lake Chad region. That whole axis for all the way along Adamawa up to Lake Chad. That whole area has its own little microeconomy. Again, it's centered around Nigerians. So everything that Boko Haram needs to do takes place in Nigeria. It's not that they haven't fought really vicious battles with the Cameroonians, with the Chadians, with the Nigerians, but most of their focus is in Nigeria. Now, the Cameroonians fought them to a standstill. The Bear did a really good job, but the Bear were essentially, fought to a standstill. They couldn't regenerate fast enough to continue the fight. So they've kind of had a position where everything is standing still. If you go to northern Cameroon, to extreme north region now, it's not as if Boko Haram is not there. It's just that everybody is, minding their own business. The Chadians, have a lot of, the Chadians have had a lot of publicity and made a lot of noise, but the Chadians do exactly the same thing the Nigerian army does. They come, they fight, they beat Boko Haram, and then they go back and sit in their camps. It's not like they're sitting and holding ground. When they tried to hold ground up in Malanfatori, they couldn't handle it. So the Nigerians as well, DeFi is sparsely populated area. They might hold 1 or 2 towns, but Boko Haram is doing as it will. It's a much more complex problem than they are beating Boko Haram. Boko Haram is in Nigeria. Nigeria, the Nigerian forces can't go anywhere. They can't go and sit in their camps. They've got to go and fight Boko Haram. They've got to hold the towns. They've got to hold the roads. So it's just that our problem set is much more difficult than the Francophone countries' problem set. However, but alluding back to what you said at the beginning, as in the conversation about weapons, is something that is my personal bugbear, that we talk so much about weapons and nobody can tell me what these weapons are. I have a lot of experience with weapons, and there's no weapon system that is needed right now that Nigeria doesn't possess. We have the aircraft, we have artillery, we have mortars, we have rifles. It's not about the weapons, it's how we use it, and it's about the men that are using these weapons and how they are trained, how they are led, and how they are treated. Those are the key implements to our military success or failure.
Okay, before I let you go, because you've mentioned some of the issues about the weaponries and things like that, and I'm aware some of the analysts, at least from a British perspective, you cannot use an armored tank to fight a bush rat. You will go there with a cutlass. And we notice that it's not that Boko Haram has planes. It's not like they have big tanks, really, let's be honest. They have, machine guns mounted on top of trucks. So, and when you mentioned it makes me actually reflect back and say, okay, why is it that we are finding it difficult and we're just relying on the fact that we don't have big weapons? What is it that our military strategy is completely off the chart? Because one of the things that was said by the private contractors was that Nigeria need to understand that this is a different kind of war. It's not the conventional war that everybody is fighting. It's different. And you've been in this kind of war front, so you understand what this is. Please speak to this issue.
So you've alluded to a very, very important point, and that's the structure of the Nigerian army. The Nigerian army was set up in the 1950s. What the Nigerian army, as we have it today, was set up in the 1950s. It's a model of the British army of the 1950s. The British army of the 1950s was set up to fight the Russians in Northern Europe. This is not that war. Every other army has evolved. If you look at the model of the armed forces that we should be looking at, is looking at the French operation in Mali, where you had really light forces, operating at range with really good logistics, supplying them, allowing officers to take risks, to confront the enemy, to chase the enemy, without having to stop, wait for your logistics to catch up with you, wait for your artillery to catch up with you. You need to be free-flowing. You need to be able to fight the way the insurgents fight. What does Boko Haram use? They use motorcycles. They use trucks. They're on foot. They use IEDs. You have to fight the same way they fight. We can't be driving around in big tanks. You come up to me in a tank, I can hear you coming from kilometers away. So all I do is go and hide in the bush, or I put a mine on the only roads that you can pass. It's quite easy to fight. Yeah, a tank will do a lot of damage, but you need to get to the battle first. So the key thing is looking at how does the enemy fight. They fight very light, very mobile. They mass their forces, they attack, and then they pull back. We need to do exactly the same thing. If they're going to come and attack us in our positions, fortify your position to the point where even approaching you is dangerous. And then when you're going to attack them, do it very, very quickly with maximum aggression and firepower, and you'll defeat them. And I speak from experience of serving in Iraq, serving in Afghanistan, and I'm not going to stand here and say, the British Army did particularly well in Afghanistan. We fought very well. We didn't lose, battles, but we didn't win the war. But we tried to fight the way the enemy fought. So tactically, we were proficient. Just operationally, strategically, things didn't work out the way we wanted.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chidi, because I think you've hit it on the nail. Before I go to Professor, let me speak to Mr. Shea, because he might be out here. 10 million kids out of school, out of school children in Nigeria. At least we could say roughly maybe 6 million is in the north. We seem not to have a record of kids, when somebody gets blown up in the UK, Mr. Chidi, Professor Alioku, to testify to it. Within 24 hours, we know those people who have been blown into pieces, even if it's just their head that we have. In Nigeria, we've never heard of this person was blown up and this is their name, this is their family. We don't know anything about it. And it seems as if Boko Haram has a pool of individuals to pull from, either from Niger, either from Cameroon, or either from within the north. why is it that it's so difficult for Nigeria to more or less eradicate the pool of the recruitment pool that Boko Haram could tap into? Why is it so difficult for Nigeria not to be able to at least do something about stopping Boko Haram being able to recruit people or young people more and more? Because you are on the field.
Okay, so thank you very much. I had a bit of a network challenge, so I was cut off at some point. But part of what I also had, which is also connected to the question you asked, is that when I mentioned that it is a badly managed situation, I'm not really referring only to operational aspects of the fight against Boko Haram. There is a political aspect of it. There's a social aspect of it. There are quite a lot of issues connected with this war against Boko Haram that are badly managed. Politically, are we doing the right thing right now? The answer is still no. And the more reason why the military are dying, we're losing more soldiers every day. They are sacrificing and doing a lot. But a lot of so many things that are supposed to go side by side with the military operation to reduce areas where Boko Haram are gaining advantage. And one of those areas is what you just mentioned. How could Boko Haram be able to sustain recruitment over the years, despite the air assault on Boko Haram, the killings, the arrests, and yet their rank are still swelling? It simply means that there are a lot of issues, social issues, political decisions that ought to have been made to support the military operations, to ensure that while the military are gaining ground, they are strangulating other areas in which this group can take advantage of to, increase their capacity and capability to grow and to launch more attacks. Now, if you look at that part of the country, we don't have, for many years, even before that time, government presence has been next to nothing in those areas. The communities, that we are hearing their names today, have for many years have not been having government presence. They've not really have or felt, the presence of government in terms of education, in terms of water, in terms of support for agriculture. Majority of the local government chairmen over the years don't go to those local governments. They were operating from Maduguri even before the emergence of Boko Haram. The only time you see them in the local government headquarters is when the allocations are being received. You see them in the week they will receive allocation, they will pieces the allocation. The ones that will go to the waziris will go to the waziris. The one that will go to the political leader will go to the political leaders, and they are back to Maduguri or to Kano or to Abuja to enjoy their loot. And the community that have been far away from government, it will be very difficult. It became a difficult issue for government at that time and up to now to be able to gain trust from those people. Now you see communities where Boko Haram enter into the community and demand. It's not all the time that Boko Haram, abduct young fighters. There are times when they enter communities and they demand that the community surrender young people to them. So that's and in some cases you see Boko Haram luring these people with lots of money. Now, when you take a political decision to give money to Boko Haram for the release of captives, you are empowering them financially to be able to acquire more ammunitions. You are empowering them to be able to have more money to recruit more soldiers. Of a recent, we did a publication to remind people that Boko Haram are increasing capability in the areas of surveillance and intelligence by recruiting women. Now, the report, if you have seen the EON's intelligence report, the report did not say that Boko Haram coerced these ladies or did not say that they were abducted. No, they were recruited. So what could have been the motivation that will make those women to accept to work for Boko Haram? Because Boko Haram are offering them what government failed to offer these people. I salute the courage of the governor for trying to resettle these people and try. I think it's about the first time that these people actually have a direct feeling or impact of a government in Borno, Yobe, most importantly, in those areas. So when we say that this is a case that has been badly managed, we're not talking about the efficiency or how much sacrifice that the military has made. The military are not the one in government. They are not the one taking political decisions. There are people responsible that have this money with them, and they have responsibility to take certain decisions that will have. And one of those things, I mean, the areas where even the operational angle that we're losing, we are failing to gain as much ground that we're supposed to gain is this. Of recent, I tried to explain, where we are failing in terms of our military operations. Borno State, Yobe, the Timbuktu axis, the Lake Chad, and the deserts. What's it called?
Yeah.
Sorry, what's that desert name again?
Zanzibar Foreign.
It's a large. It's a large expanse of land. You can't take control of that place with the level of military boots we have on ground there. It's not about the amount of ammunition, armament, equipment that you have. If you don't have enough technology, it means that you need to have enough boots on the ground. And I gave an analogy of when you have a rat in the room. You have 4 people in the room with a rat that is running around. It will take you so long for you to be able to kill that rat. If you have to start running around, because that rat is going to give you a hell of a run. But if I have up to 50 people in that room, the rat will have 50 boots, 100 legs to run against. It means that you have enough people to cover every angle of the room. And that is what we're talking about here. You strike this area, they activated another area. It's at times, even if you are in that Sambisa forest, it can take you hours of driving, a whole day driving. One, we talk about bad terrain during rainy season. We talk about visibility problem during dry season. All these things are issues. And so that we cannot continue in this way and we expect that we're going to crush it. This is a war we need to have a long-term plan before now. 5 years plan and tell the truth to the people. This is not a war we can win in 6 months, because our problem has always been quick wins. This comment will come and say, oh, I'm going to destroy Boko Haram in the next 6 months, and they will want to start doing, overnight preparations to destroy Boko Haram in 6 months that cannot work. What we need is a government that will say, see, we need up to 3 to 5 years to tackle this, and be patient with us. There are things that we need to put in place to ensure that we tackle this. And one of it is that we need to start recruitment and training. How many people can our training facility, the military training facility, recruit and train at a time? For crying out loud, we have trained military and intelligence officers of other countries. There is no shame us asking for support from other country for emergency training when we need their facility. I have protecting.
Wow, this is serious.
Of Gambia. The of Gambia, we train them. We train out of Liberia. So now, if we need a facility for us to run quick 2 years training, we recruit enough people with particular, what I'm trying to say is that 4 years, 4 years military service or 5 years military service. A lot of Nigerians are jobless as we speak right now, especially people from that area. Entice and say, okay, we have a program, a short service, 5 years or 4 years commission. It is for this program. This is the salary. This is you're going to be your emolument for that period, and then we develop training program. Within the next 2 years, we recruit. Notice our target is 100,000, soldiers that are going to serve this country, or 200,000 soldiers for these people for a period of 4 years. We'll decommission them after that 4 years, and within that 4 years, we ensure that in the next 2 years we have enough men on ground. And when we are planning for the men, we are also, reaching out to countries that can give us enough equipment and logistics support to launch a one-time major onslaught, cover all areas, moving from the outside and bring the whole thing inside. You clear, you will not leave any Boko Haram, insurgents on ground, and then you cover the ground. You don't clear a ground and then you leave it empty. So you have all those people there to cover the ground, and then you'll not be able to now have time to look at taking care of the people that have been displaced. There are social problems in that area, and that 4 or 5 years will be able to give you time for you to have a program where it will help you to be able to reintegrate those people. They can't be happy when they are seeing insurgents that have been, robed in clean clothes. You are sending them abroad on training, paying them salary. And it's the same people that killed their brothers, killed their sisters, killed their parents. That is not how to run things. You can't be doing that and you expect that these people will be happy. They will willingly join, because they know at the end of the day, if they surrender, there is something better for them than what they experience at the IDP camps. So that is the reality. And I'm saying this because there are lots of people there that are my colleagues, and I talk to them all the time. The truth is that they are not happy. They see this reality, they know what ought to be done, but it's like somebody up there is not seeing this. And the reason is that the charge has always been, we want this thing cleared up in the next 6 months. We want this thing cleared up in the next 3 weeks. Everybody's going for quick wins. I want to go in the media to say that I've just killed 60 Boko Haram. I've been able to six AA gun trucks and the rest. That is not the kind of victory that Nigeria wants to hear.
You've hit it on the nail, and in fact, you've on very important issue. It's so unfortunate. Colonel Hassan is just about to join us, but I think he's having problem with his audio, so we'll wait for him. But Mr. Chidi, please put it on the reserve. You're going to talk about the recruitment strategy of Nigerian military, which seems to be in the 9th century. They are still recruiting for drugs, still recruiting for books. And when other people have moved into recruiting technicians for drone technicians and all that. Let me go quickly to Professor Leo, because I've been to Borno. I've been to one of the biggest camps in Borno, and I saw people there very educated who just want to return back to their homeland and continue doing their work. And I don't know, they are not happy that they are in the camp. They can't leave the camp. More than 2 million. The president said they were going back. Technically, Boko Haram have been defeated. If you are watching this, please like this page, share it, tell your friends that we are live and we are discussing. We're not holding back anything. What is your view, Professor Leo? How can we deal with this? Because you see, we have a situation where there are so many minds abroad. You heard about Mr. Chi, and there are so many that you know of that have been on first tour, second tour in Iraq, Afghanistan. People that know how to deal with this. People that are on the ground in Nigeria that seems to know this, and they've been speaking from 2015 about the fact that there's need for change in our strategy. Nothing seems to be moving. What do you think is the reason why there seems to be a deaf ear in the management of our security infrastructure in Nigeria?
Thank you, Mr. Olodo. This is a very question that's germane. First and foremost, I would like to begin. There is no political will. Cry out loud. No political will. Some people, Nigerians, have taken Boko Haram as an enterprise. How? Because they benefit from this very misery. If you allow me, I would like to use as a reference General Sani Abacha, I quote, he said, any insurgency that lasted over 48 hours, it has to be something within. What does that mean? That means some people are benefiting from this unrelenting Boko Haram insurgency. Again, they said, oh, it's because of ammunition and the rest of it. I beg to differ. Which sort of ammunition? So these people are so sophisticated. No matter how even what they are, they use mobile phone. Can this phone be tracked? Didn't their network have to be banned with the, what you call it, the mass antenna? At least know in as much communication can last for 5 minutes, they can hold on to this. So the man is so sophisticated.
Serious.
What's the name again? Shekarau. Oh, he's been killed. Later on, he re-emerged. These are happened lots of times. Again, we need to commend the courage of the current governor of Borno State, Professor Odulum. But one thing I would like to say, though, they say, okay, well, we need foreign hand. It's true, but we need to check where we want to seek help from, because this foreign hand also might be part of the problem. We've had the report, Human Rights or Amnesty International saying, oh, well, the way they've taken the right of these people that doesn't even know any rights exist in the first place from them. We've heard from the intel, the moment they said, oh, they corner these people, before they know it, they escape. How? How come? Who is giving the intel? Without talking too much, without going too much into technicality, because of our viewers, I would like to say, if they want Boko Haram insurgency to finish within 12 months, we are 9 months of January. If they want it to come to a close by December, it's doable. But our men and women on the front line, the morale is low. Because if you ask them, what are they fighting for? Sorry to say, they don't even know. The seal is no more there. One thing is to carry the ammunition. Another thing is ready to say you want to go for that cause. Did they believe in the cause? And these are not invisible or invisible enemy. Boko Haram live with the people. Like my colleague says, I guess Mr. Sheyi, he said the morals of the guys in the front line are very, very low. We heard about a general that was right in the front line. I don't know, maybe what due to the statement he made, and his superior, they need to demote him. That's power test. That's typical Nigerian way of doing things. You don't just criticize in the open. And I beg to differ. This is not a criticism. He's just trying to boost the morals of his guys on the field. So I would like to say this without taking too much of your time. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to go back to the basics. The Boko Haram, they are human beings. They are from that very same planet of West Africa and Sahel. They have they live in a community, whether they go in and maybe they go during the week and come back for the weekend. They live among us. People know them. Nigeria needs common human intelligence. That's what we need most. And we can capture the demographic of the whole northwest or the whole northern part of Nigeria. One might give the excuse, oh, you know, it's a landlocked country. Every tribe, they have their extended family in Cameroon, from in Chad or in Niger, all the way to Sudan. That's not an excuse. If they want this insurgency to end, government just need to revisit the plan that they have. They need to move away from this political drama, because I will call it political drama, and the people are dying. Mr. Sheyi says, he said, well, to recruit, it's about the highest bidder. This is the fact. Boko Haram can pay, but the government is not paying. Someone that had nothing to lose, no education, no food, no health, nothing, no hope. What is there for them to lose? and come Mr. Boko Haram, induce them with some, okay, well, we're going to give you this, give you that. They are ready to sell, all sales. So I believe it's not about the technology that's not involved, excuse me, or the ammunitions. What we are lacking is people didn't see this Boko Haram insurgency or counter it as our thing. They've seen it as government things. Because why? That thing has been taken away from the people. There is no seal for the ones in the front line. A common man doesn't care because guess what? He doesn't even realize any government. So where did we go from here? That is the big question mark that's left to the people, to the experts to respond to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I can see that Retired Colonel Sambo is trying to join, but his mic, there seems to be a challenge with his mic, so we'll try and get him to join us before we finish. But if you are watching right now, please like this place, share it, tell your friends that we're live on Facebook and they could watch us, and please share it and leave a comment, and we'll be looking forward to your comment. Let me go back to Mr. Chidi. You see, part of the challenge we have, we've been talking about the fact that, and Mr. Seyi alluded to it, which is the fact that why is it so difficult? We have, I know Nigerian military law allows for reserves to be drawn in, but these are extraordinary times when you need to use extraordinary measure. We have so many Nigerians that have been to Iraq, Afghanistan, either because they work, either because they live and are American citizens retired, or British citizens, Nigerian British citizens retired, or Europeans retired. But why is it that we've been speaking, you, me, Mr. Seyi, Mr. Chidi, David Otto, so many of us, for almost 5 years, I've not actually point at one idea or concept that is not out there in public domain, but it seems nothing is being done. How can we rejig the military? Why is it that they can't do what Mr. Seyi just said? Commission people for 2 years, commission people for 5 years, bring in technicians, bring in experts. Even my ordinary 10-year-old car in the UK, even my 10-year-old car in the UK has a tracker in it. Why is it that the military equipment does not have tracker? You know, I can't understand what's really happening. So you've been in the war front. What is your view, and how do you think Nigeria can change the mood and change the way in which they are fighting this Boko Haram, this war against Boko Haram?
So I think the first thing is I'm going to pull back the veil a little bit and say, you know, all militaries are inherently conservative. All militaries are adverse to change. You know, but you know, the good thing is that with, I would say, the professional militaries like the Western militaries, you know, they've been forced to change, you know, because they've got a constant churn of people coming through, and they've been forced to accept excellence. Even the Russians in Chechnya, if you look at the Russians in Chechnya, they were abysmal. They were being defeated, you know, time in, time out. Now look at how they've operated in Georgia. In Georgia, again, they didn't do too well, although they achieved the objective. But how they've operated in Syria, how they've operated in Ukraine, completely different. They've learned. The Nigerian military has the problem, and this is something maybe that I've said a little bit controversial, is that, you know, it's still in the grip of people who grew up in, you know, in a certain manner of training, and they've kind of not been able to let go. You know, when we talk about, you know, the big buzzword is mission command and maneuverist warfare, which means giving, you know, your subordinates independence, allowing them, you know, to go off and fight battles however they want to fight the battle, win, and come back and say, okay, you told me to capture that hill, I've captured the hill. They're not telling you go left when I say left, go right, go right, you know, that kind of thing. But Nigeria is very top heavy. Oga at the top is a reality. You don't want to move unless your Oga tells you to move. You don't shoot until your Oga tells you to shoot. You want ammunition, you go back and ask Oga, who will not ask his own Oga. It's all very antiquated, and that's until that mindset is lifted, you know, it's not going to change. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. You know, the army might be the big kind of the biggest force, and they might have a lot of issues. But if you look at how the Air Force has modernized itself, the Air Force has, you know, massively expanded its ground forces, brought in a special forces element, brought in training from abroad, and rather than just bringing in training where people will come deliver courses. The guys will just be looking at them, they collect certificates and go home. They've brought guys in, understood the ground, used the British RAF regiment to train their ground forces, and these guys then trained the Nigerians, and then they stepped back and let the Nigerians run the training. So it was now a Nigerian-owned project. Same with their special forces, brought in guys, trained their special forces, who then step back and let them train them. So there's now they have ownership of this of this process. The same thing, and as Mr. Sheyi has said, he's 100% correct. We need to completely rethink how we do how we bring in our military. We need to bring in a reserve element. We need to expand. Look at it. We need to be innovative. Look at the NYSC. Why can't we expand the NYSC and say you have an option of not just doing 1 year service, normal national service, or doing maybe 2-3 years in the army or in the police or in the air force or in the navy. We give you, and the benefits will be this: you'll get extra pay, you'll get extra privileges, whatever it is, you're going to get something extra. And you, rather than bringing in you bring in, young enthusiastic graduates. We all met all these NYC guys, they're all motivated, young, patriotic people. They want to, even if not all of them join, you get, a few thousand people from there, send them off to become officers and NCOs. And then again, expand recruitment, get young fellows who have just left secondary school. And I'm mentioning school and university for an important reason that insurgency, you need educated soldiers. You need people who can think. You need somebody who will think that, is that person in the bush, is it an old woman, or is it an insurgent? You need someone who can stop and think before they do something. You need someone, as has been mentioned, by the professor. Human intelligence is key. And a good part of human intelligence is just talking to somebody, just being able to empathize with somebody, not just any civilian you see, you start beating them. Being able to talk, having that education to be able to absorb information, absorb training. So I would strongly advocate that the Nigerian Armed Forces, brings in a policy of what the Russians, when Chechnya, they brought in a thing called the contractics, the contract soldiers, and try and do a thing like that, where you sign a 5-year, 10-year contract, you fight with the Nigerian army, like 5 years will be fine, and you get a higher salary, but you don't get a pension. So at the end of the day, you don't have big legacy costs. You don't have to pay people pension, after 22 years, but you do your 5 years and you just keep renewing every 5 years. You get a sign-on bonus, you get a renewal bonus, but that is in lieu of getting a pension, and you get a higher salary. And then you can then massively expand the army from where it is now to like hundreds and hundreds of thousands. And then when the conflict, dies down, it's very easy now to just let people go, because you're not tied to anybody for the rest of their lives. They will leave after 5 years, go off and do something else. And then at the same time, those guys can be built up as a reserve force, and you keep them under kind of contract, saying, okay, come in every 2 weeks, every year, do some refresher training, and then if it all goes wrong, we call you back to the colors and you fight again. That way you have a huge army, but it's not a big legacy cost. And as Mr. Sheyi said, this is all about infantry. This is all about boots on the ground. It's, I've mentioned the Afghan experience, and I always refer back to it because I fought in, and I'm very, very proud of my service. I'm very proud of the British Army, and I fought in one of the best armies in the world. But we were too few on the ground, so we would be in our fob here, and you could hear the Taliban, patrolling. The local people will come by and they'll tell you Taliban are in that bush there, but you can't move because we were too few. We couldn't move. We couldn't do anything, unless we were ready to go out and we had all the resources. And when people talk about technology again, let me emphasize, we had lots of technology. We had radars that could pick up artillery. We had every conceivable bit of technology you could think of, but the Taliban would still come under the road leading to our base and put IEDs. So technology is not everything. You have to be out there on the ground, physically on the ground. And when the enemy comes, then you fight, and then because you're better trained and better skilled, you beat them. And that's the only way this is going to happen. More men, better training, and that's it.
Before I let you go and speak to somebody else, I've seen a lot of, in the last 3 years, I've seen a lot of Nigerian military recruitment. And you talked about it. But why is it that the recruitment is not changed? Is it just that it's a Nigerian thing? Because we know the Air Force have really changed. They've moved dramatically. We've seen that they're even having, having a lot of changes, a lot of move. But we see Nigerian Army and Nigerian Air Force dropping bombs. But we don't hear of the paratroopers troopers actually going in, in bunch of, in little batches to actually go in and stay for weeks to go and take out a group? Why is it that it's very difficult for us to do that? Do you think there's a particular reason, or is it that we're just lazy?
No, no, they're not. They're just they're not lazy. They're just soldiers. I mean, I would take my hat off to them, because I would not fight under the conditions that they fight under. When last time I was in Borno State, these guys that I met there, they're still there now. And even when I was there, they've been there for almost 2-3 years. They'd barely seen their families. People had seen their whole units wiped out at least 2-3 times, and they were still there fighting. And when I asked them, how are they mind? They say, "Oh God, we know they leave this place until we kill all those bastards." That, excuse my language, but these guys were, as much as they're depressed and demoralized, they want to win this war. They want to win. There's, and these boys they're wonderful boys. Don't get me wrong, they're wonderful. We're really letting them down. But just to get back to your point of, a change in tactics would be great. The first thing is that airborne operations are actually quite resource intensive and quite and also a little bit tactically complicated. It's not impossible, but it's something we need to be doing. But the most important thing is not just is what does that airborne operation actually entail? What you're actually doing is you're fighting in the enemy's rear. You're taking the war to the enemy's depth. You're taking the war to where they're comfortable. Now let's go back. Just two steps. The first step I'll take you back to is Sri Lanka in the Tamil War. The Sri Lankans, if you look at it, it was very similar to ours. They were fought for decades. And then in a few years, they said, we're going to win this war. And they changed their whole army, changed their whole structure, and they defeated them. Part of the way they did it was exactly what you said. They didn't stop. They developed very competent special forces, but every single unit had its own special forces element. And their job was to go into the enemy's rear and just cause problems, just fight them in their rear. And the funny thing is, they never used airdrops. They just used their feet and walked into it. Now, if you go back a few more steps to the Second World War, in the Second World War, the Nigerian army fought in Burma as part of the British Army. As two divisions, 81st and the 2nd Divisions, fought the Japanese. And they were the first British unit, or British or Commonwealth unit, or imperial units, to go into the jungle to fight the Japanese. And they did exactly that. They went on foot, walked into the jungle, had their supplies by airdrop, and beat the Japanese. The Japanese, there's a very famous saying, these men that were fighting, they are from Africa. They are very fearless. They don't know how to die. They are very, very troublesome. The Japanese hated fighting the Nigerians. It's all in our history. It's all in our DNA. It's just to bring it out and reconstitute it.
Thank you so much for actually bringing that. And if you're watching right now, please like it. There must be a part 2 to this. But before I let you go, there is something I need to say, and I bring in Mr. Seyi and Prof. There's this argument out there among security analysts that we've been out there in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and we've done a good job. And in fact, the private contractors that came in testified to the fact that the guys that were selected and given to them to train, every one of them, they couldn't release any of one of them back because they were all good. And that while their own people were dying during the training, none of the Nigerian soldiers was lost. That is to testify to the ruggedness of our soldiers, that they are killing machines. Why is it that Nigeria is refusing to call on? I know we have multinational task force. Why is it that we can't call on the United Nations? Okay, kill the army. Let us get rid of Boko Haram once and for all. Let's just put an effort to it. Why is it that Nigeria is refusing that and bringing in private security contractors? Knowing full well that private security contractors, contrary to what is going on out there now, actually help to ensure that none of the Nigerian local government was under Boko Haram as of 2015 when they were handing over. So what is your opinion about private contractors or even bringing in United Nations, as some people have argued? 2 minutes.
So my view on contractors, they are very, especially the ones that we brought in, the South Africans. These are Africans. They've fought they know more about war and fighting in Africa than anybody on the planet. These guys are just natural soldiers, brilliant soldiers, but it comes with a heavy caveat. You're bringing in other people to fight your wars. To me, the analogy I always give people is like you're bringing somebody. Your wife is complaining. You're bringing another man to come and sleep with her. Go and learn work. That is my own opinion on this thing. That we have to go and learn the work first. The South Africans that we're bringing in, and this is a comment I made. I talk to them quite a bit. I'm like, the comment I always have is this: when the South Africans had their first problems, in Rhodesia and in Southwest Africa, they sent some people to Britain to learn how to do special forces, to take their special forces course, came back, introduced it to South Africa, and developed their own special forces, who are some of the best, almost the best fighting forces in Africa. We do not need to bring in foreigners to fight our wars. If you want to learn from their skills, we should do that. But to fight our wars, it's a very, very dangerous slippery slope. Once you can no longer defend yourself, and you no longer have the right to call yourself a
Okay. Let me bring in Mr. Sheyi, and then I bring him up to round. Mr. Sheyi, just to the same thing, what is your view? 2 minutes, sir.
Let me remind us where we came from. We came from a situation where we had generals at the beginning of this problem that have never seen war in their life. They became generals. That is, as at the time they were commissioned in the Nigerian army, up to the time they became generals, they did not participate in the Nigerian Civil War. We're talking about people who joined the Nigerian army after 1970, 1980. So, and we came into a war with no experience. And that was the fact. And if you're talking about generals at that time that have not seen war, the best experience they've had was peacekeeping mission. The protocol for peacekeeping mission is different from war. If you look at ECOMOG, it is not about intervention. It's more of them standing in between and preventing. Now, that was the situation. And it reflected in our ability to actually counter the insurgency at that time. And that was what necessitated the need for us to bring in those who are specialized in situations like this to help us to. Now, another thing that maybe you are aware, that we trained a lot of people in Belarus, special force. The question is, where are these guys today? Only few of the special forces that were trained in Belarus were lost. Majority of them now have been transferred out of Borno. And the best of the performance we had at that period were carried out by the special force on the ground with the support of the Nigerian Air Force. So kudos to the Nigerian Air Force. They've made us proud over the years. They have been spot on with their intelligence and their striking. And the special force have been able to help them to do, the ground mopping up. But what happened? There are lots of policies that are played out, that are still being played out in this situation. And we should also forget the fact that Nigerian army are virtually operating in all the 36 states of the country as we speak. From Operation Crocodile Smile to Python Dash to whatever, still this inadequate military force that we have. And we're still engaged in so many operations, that police have been empowered to take care of. So today now we have the civilian JTF. Kudos to these guys. They've done a lot in helping, to do lots of mop-up and protecting many of those, villages and communities. If you are following this guy, you'll see, I've not seen, any vigilante group as motivated in terms of self-motivation this time around like these guys. And what that says is that we have lots of Nigerians, irrespective of the fact that they are being demoralized, they are patriotic about this country, they are willing. All what government needs to do is create a better program. Like we said, 4 to 5 years, military service for them. You'll see how many Nigerian youths will turn up for this program to serve this country. And for those who have been trained in Belarus, and there are some that were sent to some other country, I think some also went to Pakistan and the rest, but the majorly, like those guys that were transferred to, that were trained in Belarus, they should bring them back to list lead this function. I have so many of them. I don't want to mention their names now. Many of them that I know. I mean, that are part of that team, and I know the exploit that these guys did.
Let Prof.
Yes, can you hear me?
Can I bring Prof? Can you quickly speak to this? And why you are saying that, I'm going to bring in my brother Ibrahim Chango, who actually was in ECOMOG peacekeeping force. Please check your email. I'm sending you an email now so that you can actually join us on this platform to talk about this. But Prof, please go ahead.
Okay.
So Mr. Ibrahim, please check your email.
Basically, I mean, thanks for Mr. Sheyi for hitting that point. Basically, what I would love to say is when coming to machinery, as they call them, or contract soldier, there's nothing new about this. The almighty Uncle Sam, America, they use this in Iraq, even in Afghanistan. The most noticeable name is Blackwater. Blackwater is one of those most noticeable, machinery army in the world today. And having said this, in Nigerian case, a unique one, you mentioned of those of South Africa. I must say though, let's look back into a case of, let's use Somalia as a case study. What happened in Somalia? They warned them that, look, these guys here are coming, these are not conventional army. These are ragtag. What happened? We all knew of what in that very piece of film they call Black Hawk Down or something like this, whereby the low tech is overshadowing the high tech of America. Now, as I earlier said, what Nigeria really need is human intelligence, common people. People need to be empowered. People need to be given the sense of belonging, i.e., shelter, education, livelihood. By having this in this part of the world, I believe the situation can be reversed. Now, coming to the military, I believe the military, those young men in the front line, they need a booster. They need morale booster, because now morale is very low. In a situation whereby the person that is supposed to, that is causing mayhem, being released, giving as many as Mr. Sheyi mentioned, I guess he's referring to those one being sent abroad to go and spend some time, waste some the education they can have back in Nigeria, they can have it there and again. So this again is something they don't need to do. Government need to look for another way to kind of reform them, because this kind of reform doesn't really send a good signal to those new recruits of the insurgents. So I believe they need to go back to the drawing board. We need that political will in order to move things forward.
Okay, can I go to Mr. Chidi? There is this discussion about, and I think you've mentioned the fact that there is no need to use somebody from outside Nigeria. But let's talk to this issue of this present military leadership, that the government is not interested in removing, even though many people have said, please let these people go, let somebody else come in. What is your view about that? Is it time that they need to just drop the cap and let somebody else do it, or you think they are better off doing it? Mr.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I guess it's for you.
Mr. Chidi, go ahead.
I think it's a little bit of a slippery slope to when we go down this road of let's get rid of the service chiefs. Now, there's several factors that one must take into account. The first is that just by the nature of the military, everybody wants to move up, at the ranks, and by them being in that position, they're stopping other people from moving up their ranks. So people are not going to get the opportunity to fulfill their careers. Yeah. So there will be many talented officers who will never get to the pinnacle of their careers because these guys are in longer than they should. The second thing is that, we can't just say throw out the service chiefs. It all comes down to what does the we're in a democracy for all its for however we wish to define it. We're in a democracy with civilian control of the military, and they serve at the pleasure of the president. The president's will is that he wants to have his service chief serve for the duration of his term. That is, within his prerogative. So it all comes down to what is the objective. The second, there's two more things. The second, or the third or fourth thing, I've lost count of how many things I've got now. But the third thing I would say is that rather than saying get rid of the service chiefs, we analyze the performance of the service chiefs. As I said, the Air Force has done extremely well. The Army not so good. The Navy is kind of keeping quiet, But piracy, the Gulf of Guinea is now the piracy hotspot. So maybe we can say not so good. The fourth and final thing is performance. Rather than just saying we need to get new people in, what we need is a new, as I said before, this, there's a civilian control of the military, and what you need to have is somebody who will give, some kind of performance indicators and say, listen, we need to either reduce casualties by X, or we need to retake all territory, or we need to do this. Unfortunately, what we seem to have done in Nigeria is that we've given an announcement or we've created a narrative, and we're living to that narrative. So we said Boko Haram is technically defeated. And yes, at the point that announcement was made was that Boko Haram was technically defeated. However, they've obviously evolved since then, and there's a resurgence. But we're still insisting Boko Haram is technically defeated. They're fleeing, they're starving, they're hungry, they're not, which is ridiculous. So we need to be able to turn around and say, this is what we want from our service chiefs. If the current service chiefs can achieve it, fine, stay in position. If you can't, step aside and let other people in.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me seize this opportunity now. Mr. Ebrima, who is my brother, will work. He even took me to Europe. So, and he's a colonel, retired colonel. The Gambia, and is used to Nigeria. Please, Mr. Ibrahim Chango, tell me your view about how you feel we could defeat Boko Haram based on your experience, in this field, having been, an assistant inspector general of the Gambia, and actually coming from the French perspective. So in fact, if you want to speak a bit in French, you are free to speak in French, so that our French viewers can know that I'm not actually making this up. You speak French fluently, So go ahead, sir. Give us your views on this matter.
Oh, thank you, Temi. I mean, I've been listening to your co-panelists, and one of them said that the Nigerian army has not gone to war. Liberia was not peacekeeping. Liberia was a peace enforcement, and it was real fighting that made Tello to surrender, and then we have the elections and everything. The issue is not about removing the chief of staff. The problem is, in an insurgency, it's not easy to fight. Let me tell you, the best army in Black Africa is the Senegalese army. And they have been fighting an insurrection in the south of Senegal for over 30 years. It's almost 40 years now, when I joined the military. They've managed to control it, but there's always a problem. Now, when it comes to Nigeria, it's difficult, because you have to look at the history of Nigeria with the military coups and etc. and etc. And also corruption. Corruption is the problem of the whole thing. The army can defeat these Boko Haram people, but there is an issue of corruption. You see, when you have a war in an African country, there is no accountability. The generals have a free hand. And if you don't have generals who are patriots, all the money they give for the insurrection, most of it will disappear. This is the problem. But the thing is also, we have to look at the context of Nigeria. Nigeria is divided tribally and regionally. So the problem is, no army can fight an insurrection without the cooperation of the civilian population who are around there. Because you need to get the intelligence. Tell me, you live in England. It's the same problem they're having with their policing. You go to Hackney, all the police are white men. That's why they cannot police, because they don't have the intelligence. So it's the same thing in Nigeria. The army needs to get the buy-in of the civilians. There's no doubt that Buhari have an interest to defeat this. But the problem is the army needs to win the hearts and minds of the area where they're fighting.
You've hit it on the nail. Let me ask you a question, because I know you're a no-nonsense man, and you always shoot it straight. You don't hide it. There's argument within the security atmosphere that the French also has a particular interest, in not helping Nigeria to deal with it, because Nigeria is surrounded by French countries, and the multinational task force seems to have been killed deliberately with this J5, working more in Mali and putting more investment in Mali. What if you are advising the Nigerian president now? How will you advise him to handle the French element of this issue? Because you have the Niger, you have the Lake Chad, the Chad. How will he handle it to be? Because this is francophone, anglophone issue. And there are people that said that is part of the reason why this issue, because you fight Boko Haram will run to Niger. You fight them a little bit, they run to other places. What would be your advice to the Nigerian government about the francophone aspect?
Do you want me to speak in French or in English?
Speak in French, please. 1 minute. French. Yeah.
Non, écoutez, Temi, ça c'est pas vrai. Écoute-moi, c'est une honte pour le Nigeria.
That's not true.
C'est une honte pour le Nigeria.
He says that's not true.
No, I'll speak in English and translate in French.
Okay.
Look, this is not
okay.
True.
Go ahead.
This is not true. This is a shame for Nigeria, our biggest country in West Africa, to say that the French can sabotage. Look at the Chadians. The Chadians have done well in the fighting. So this is not issue of France. We should be grateful to France because they brought their army to stabilize. If it was not for France, Mali would have been finished. It would have been divided into two countries. The Arab, this is a problem of racism. The Tuaregs, they don't want black people to control them. That's number one. So Nigeria is a big country. To talk about the French, that's a shame for us after 6 years of independence. I don't agree with that. If our countries are serious and our military are serious, they could defeat them, but they need to win the hearts and minds of the areas they are fighting. Je vais parler en français. C'est pas normal. C'est pas une histoire de la France ou des pays anglophones. Nous sommes indépendants depuis 60 ans. Vraiment, c'est honteux pour un pays comme le Nigeria, avec 200 millions de personnes, qui dit les Français pour saboter ça. Les Tchadiens, ils ont fait le bon guerre. Donc, le Nigeria doit prendre sa responsabilité pour régler ce problème. Ça doit être Nigeria qui était le lead dans cette histoire.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim, because you've hit it on the nail. Let me go to Mr. Sheyi as we start to round up. Mr. Sheyi, Mr. Ibrahim Chango, who is well known and is an expert. I hear you, Mr. Prof. I know I'll allow you to speak. But let me go to Mr. Sheyi because you're on the ground. Corruption seems to be a serious issue. In fact, before President Buhari came in, we knew that some military were selling intelligence to the extent that army will go into the war front, and Boko Haram will have more knowledge about it, and even Governor Zulum have more or less talked about it. What is your opinion? You are on the ground. Give us your view about the impact of corruption in fighting the issue of Boko Haram. Mr. Ibrahim has more or less highlighted that.
Okay, can I speak now?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so thank you. I want to start by responding that's something that the last person about ECOMOG being peace enforcement. No, that is not entirely correct. ECOMOG went into Liberia as a peacekeeping mission. And that's the reason why they could not interfere in the arrest of, what's his name? I forgot his name. One of the
man that was killed. I will allow you, Mr. Ibrahim, to speak. I will allow you to speak. Let him finish. I will allow you. I will allow you.
No, listen to me. He doesn't know. I was a soldier. I sent troops to ECOMOG. And when ECOMOG was decided, I was a joint ops commander in Gambia when Babaginda was there with Jawara. It's not peacekeeping. If it was peacekeeping, they wouldn't have killed a lot of ECOMOG soldiers. Dogo Nyaro came there. The Nigerian army attacked. They fought. Charles Taylor almost occupied Liberia. I'm not saying this for the sake of saying it. I know. I was there. I was involved. I'm not trying to argue with you, my brother. I go anywhere. Okay. That is peace enforcement. It was not peacekeeping. I
think we need to have a round 2 on this because we're running out. But what I'm going to do, Mr. Sheyi, I'll just give you 1 minute to round up. Then I'll go to Prof. 1 minute, Mr. Chidi, and then Mr. Ibrahim, you run up with 1 minute. Yeah. I
stand on my point. ECOMOG went to Liberia as peacekeeping. All the literatures are there. All the directive as 1990, 25th of August, when the Liberian problem started, it was peacekeeping. It was the outcome, because there's a difference between the concept of peacekeeping and the peace enforcement. The issue of peace enforcement later came on board because peacekeeping became an issue and AU has to approve that. However, going on the issue of corruption. Corruption is not only a problem in the states and Yobe. It's a problem with the entire country. And like I said before, what we see happening in the northeastern states is just a reflection of what the country is. We have problem of corruption right there inside the ID camp. We have the issue of corruption right there in all the local government areas. But thanks to this current government, is telling them, for those that they have appointed, you have to operate in those local governments. The man is aware. He was a professor, he's still a professor, but he was an academician in that stage. And he knows what is happening there. That's the reason why he made it mandatory. I will fire you the moment I know that you are staying in Maduguri. Go back to your local government and go and administer, the local government administration and then reach your people. And I believe that what we need to have, leaders that are, hitting the nails on the head, try to, who doesn't really care whether some political godfathers or gladiators will go against him for second time. The government doesn't look like somebody who is ready to appeal to anybody for second time. But I can assure you that the people will be more than willing to elect him again without the support of any political leader, because that is what people desire in a leader that can say truth to power, confront issues the way they have. The issue of, in terms of experience, we compare Nigerian army as at the time Boko Haram started with the Algerian military. The Algerian armed forces have been fighting battle, exposed to a lot of issues before that time. We know fighting battles, and see, it is what you do over and over that is what makes you to become an expert. But we had a military, not a fault of their own, but because Nigerian foreign policy has been geared towards us maintaining peace with our neighbors. We don't want to go to war with the Niger Republic. We don't want to go to war with Cameroon. So we try to maintain peace. So this affected us. And that's why you see, country like America, even though they don't have war in America, they try to ship their soldiers out there so that they can have the battle experience.
Okay, Mr. Sheyi, thank you so much. Let me go to Prof. Prof, you have only 1 minute. Speak as a lecturer. Straight down, 1 minute, because I need to come back to Mr. Chidi and then give Mr. Ibrahim the final word. Please go ahead, sir.
Mainly, I would like to really touch on the point. I would like to respond to Mr. Ibrahim from Gambia or from Senegal. I beg to differ. Sorry. In our ramification, there is no reason we can say French Elise intervention anywhere in part of Africa is justifiable. Sorry. We have the record. It's very plain like a broad daylight. French are the last people. They are the last people to come out and say, well, they are doing this in order to do nation building. I beg to differ. We can't even start opening the record. Should we roll back, or should we roll back in 10 years before now? What they've done in the same very West Africa and Sahel. Where should we start from? Should we start from Libya?
Okay. Okay.
Or should we go to Mauritania?
Okay.
Or should we go to Algeria? Or in Senegal? These are the people that is, excuse me please. These are the same people.
Okay.
Okay, well, maybe due to time. I'm sorry, but it's something very close to the heart.
Close to your heart. I know it's close to your heart. We're going to go for part 2. There is no doubt. Because Mr. Brahim will have a right of reply, but no doubt. But let me go to Mr. Chidi for his last comment on this issue. Mr. Chidi. Oh, sorry. Apologies. Your mic. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Which is that?
Yeah, I've done it. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The fundamental is that this is a Nigerian problem, and the problem emanates from poor governance.
Okay.
Once we start addressing the governance, and it comes back to everything we say, not just what Mr. Seyi was saying about local government chairman. That is what I'm trying to say. Just being able to deliver basic goods, and it also means the accountability. Making the correct choices in terms of our military, in terms of training, and in terms of leadership. So once we address the governance issue, then we'll start addressing the insurgencies. And then, but the main thing is that militarily, what we need are more troops. We don't need more drones. We don't need. I mean, drones are nice, but we don't. It's not about buying drones and shiny pieces of equipment. It's about well-trained, well-led soldiers on the ground, and the innovative tactics to use them properly.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let me go to Mr. Brahim, and I'll give you the last word on this matter, because you're not just speaking from an academic perspective. You're speaking as a soldier that was on the ground in the ECOMOG. You are the man that trained, the former governor, the former president of the Gambia. So you're speaking as a veteran who understands his onions. And all your colleagues here also agree with you to some point on some of the issues you've highlighted. Now, so tell me, in few words, everybody wants Nigeria to excel when it comes to Boko Haram and get rid of Boko Haram at the end of the day. So what is your view in terms of your passing up? What would be your advice to Nigerian government in moving forward on this matter? And your last word, and you can also end up with French when you finish.
Okay, before I come there, I want to respond to Prof respectfully. I think Prof did not listen to me properly. The French, every nation will pursue the interest of your nation. But what I said was that it's the same for Nigeria, 60 years of independence, for France to come in your area to manipulate things, and you cannot do anything. Why? Because of the corruption, maladministration, and bad governance. So I think Prof did not listen to me properly, and I would like to have a debate with him so that we understand. We are very easy to blame neo-colonialism, British intervention, whatever. But what are we doing? Because we are responsible for what is happening. Now, coming back to Nigeria, what we need to do, what the Nigerian government needs to do, is to make sure, because let me tell you this thing, with corruption, the army can never win. I will tell you an example of Senegal, where in southern Senegal, there was a rebellion, the army suppressed it, there was no coup d'etat, because the institutions are functioning. If the Nigerian institutions are not functioning, the army will never defeat Boko Haram. The institution needs to work. The civil service, the local government administration, and got the buy-in of the people there. You cannot fight a war without the support of the people. And also, to look at the grievances, why would Nigerians stand up and fight the central government? Because there's corruption, There's maladministration. They've not looked after the schools. They've not done everything properly. All they're doing is have governors, senators, and big parties in Abuja, in the big street, and the ordinary Nigerian doesn't have anything to do. So he has no hope in life. Why would an individual sit down and just you sacrifice yourself because you have no hope in life? The government needs to give hope to the Nigerian youths, to the Nigerian population, and then you defeat it.
Thank you.
And I want to listen back to Professor.
Thank you.
So, you are definitely going to have an opportunity to. We're going to have a part. We're going to have a part two. We're going to have a part two of this issue. But let me use this opportunity to thank Professor Ali Alao, my brother Chidi, my brother Sheyi. Thank you so much, Ebrima, and Colonel Hassan, who have been trying to get on board, but there just seem to be a problem. We are going to have a part two. If you are watching this, please like this page, share this page, and just like Mr. Ebrima said, we can win this war on the ground. If we win the people on the ground, Boko Haram will become history. And if we deal with corruption, if we do exactly what Mr. Chidi is saying about ensuring that we modify our military to be relevant for this time, we will be able to deal with it. Let me use this to thank everyone that watched this program. Join me again on Saturday, 9 p.m., 8 p.m. UK time, 9 p.m. and we're going to have a part two of this issue. And I hope all my panelists will agree to join me on Saturday so that we kill this issue once and for all. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. And thank you for our viewers, for everyone that stayed with us, to listen to this brilliant discussion. God bless you all and have a lovely evening.